back a little bit. Okay, so we are recording. What I'm going to do is ask you each the same question, and then we'll go back and we'll start. So we'll start with Addis. Kenny, on the second question, we'll start with you. We'll go back this way, okay? So it gives you a little bit of time as you're listening to other people. Feel free to make notes. If this were in a live interview situation, they would expect you to make notes. So it's not like cheating. They won't want you just sitting there not using your faculties. So let's start with time management. So we'll start, Addis, with number 18. Sometimes it's not possible to get everything on your to-do list done. Tell me about a time your responsibilities got a little overwhelming for you, and what did you do?
How long should the answer be?
1 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
That situation, action, and result or learning that you have.
Can I take a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Sure, go right ahead. I'll repeat it. Sometimes it's just not possible to get everything on your to-do list done. Tell me about a time your responsibilities got a little overwhelming. What did you do to handle the situation? You have a seat here. That's just a worksheet that we're going to be using, Jacob. Okay, so this is a challenge to kind of think on your feet. So Addis, tell me about a time that you were overwhelmed with everything on your to-do list. What did you do?
2 summers ago, after finishing 12th grade in high school, I went back to Latvia all by myself. I lived with my dad in the States prior in 12th grade, and I went back to Latvia all by myself, and I had my family there, but I was living on my own in my apartment, and it was kind of sometimes very difficult to just figure out what to do and just going to grocery stores on my own, and just time management, and just finding places to go and people to be with, and then also I had to just also pay for the bills and electrical bills, which was the first time I ever done that. So I called my dad often and asked a few family members in Latvia what they did and any advice that they had. So it was helpful, and it really made me realize the importance of being just more responsible, and also just living on your own and how hard it is. So
great, thank you.
Yeah, I think this really relates to me from the past month. As VP of programming for my fraternity, we do 1,100 hours initiative, which is we do 1,100 hours of community service in a month to honor 1,100 college suicides each year. And on top of that, I also had a bunch of schoolwork as well, and so I was both planning events, making sure guys did service hours, and planning our annual philanthropy event at the same time, while also taking 4 classes as well. So I was really busy, but the nice thing was that since I'm the VP, I had a committee below me, so I was able to delegate my work off to some of my work for the fraternity off to a committee, so I could go to school first, because that's why I'm here. And the result of that was we were able to complete our 1,100 hours and raise over $7,000, and I was also able to get home to school.
Perfect, great, thank you so much. Autumn, same question. When was the time that you maybe felt overwhelmed with your to-do list, and what did you do?
So recently, prior to spring break, I had many assignments due, I had midterms to study for, and it was also Elon Day, which is a day of giving for my job, and it required me to work 42 hours in 1 week on top of all this. I was very overwhelmed. However, I decided that I was going to break this down into things that affected me versus things that affected me only versus things that affected individuals. So first, I prioritized my group projects, because I wanted to maintain my relationships with my group members and my classmates, because I didn't want to negatively affect them as a result of my overwhelmingness. And then I prioritized my job, because it was very important that I gave my all to my university on such an important day of the week. And then, after those two things were complete, I focused on individual assignments and studying my midterms because that was something that I could do on my own time that only affected me. And as a result, I did very well on my midterms. I did very well on my group projects, maintained my relationships with my classmates, and also raised some great money for the university.
Kenny, same question. When was the time that you maybe felt overwhelmed with your to-do list, and what did you do?
Over the summer, I was working on a project with a fellow intern, working on a competitive matrix for gift cards at a company back home, and she was going home to India for a surprise family emergency, and I was tasked with doing it by myself. And I found that my schedule was too full, so I asked one of my fellow teammates to come help me on the project. And we were able to get the information done and like split up the workload that she had to be able to do the project.
Okay, great answer. So the next question we'll ask will be, what did we say? Teamwork, right? So Kenny, I'll start with you. Tell me about a time you needed to get information from someone who wasn't very responsive.
Over the summer as well, I was creating a monthly company newsletter to talk about wins for the company, to explain to other branches what we were doing, so they could get to know our location a little bit better. And it was hard to set up meetings with people just due to their busy schedules. So I would try to be as open as possible and to cater to their schedules, and allowed me to create like a monthly process of which I could meet with them to get the information that I needed for the newsletter.
Great answer. Autumn, what about you?
Yes.
So the question is, tell me about a time you needed to get information from someone who wasn't very responsive to you. What did you do?
Yes, so on one particular holiday when I was working as a waitress, my boss was very overwhelmed with his workload and he was not giving clear directions to our employees. I was the group leader for the teams that day, and I had no idea what our job was supposed to be. I was given very vague instructions, make the customers happy. So I kind of talked to my teammates and asked them what they thought the best way we could do this was, and together we came up with an idea of how the particular members of that team thought we should act that day and how we should prioritize the goals for the day. And that teamwork and collaboration are just the initiative to say, listen, we got to figure this out. We had some really great results, and we really didn't have many complaints or problems that day.
Great answer.
Yeah, so when I stepped into my DPA programming role, the one before me didn't give me any information, so I was kind of at first all on my own, and so that was kind of the situation, and I ended up being super persistent with him, and I wouldn't stop until he gave me all of his stuff, and the result of that was I was able to, once I got his stuff, I was able to raise a lot of money for a great cause, and
Great. Persistence pays, right? Okay, Addis, same question. Tell us about a time where you had to get information from someone who wasn't very responsive to you.
During my first semester here at Elon, in my sports management class, we were assigned a group project at the beginning of the year, which was due at the end of the year, or not the semester, so it was during final exams. And I had a classmate which wasn't the most ideal. He often didn't show up to classes, and I didn't get his phone number at the first time we were assigned a group project, so it was kind of hard to communicate with him. But on the day that he actually showed up to class, I got his phone number and email, so and I started to communicate with him, and it turned out that he wasn't that much he actually wanted to do the work. It just he was very sick for those few days, so it's and as a result, I understood that it's very important to communicate with people and just really understand other people's situations, and you never know what they might be dealing with. So.
Yes. Great learning, great story. So let's give them some applause for going first in this round. As you guys think about the process, what was easy for you, what was challenged? Anybody who wants to start? Any? What was easy or challenge?
I kind of got like inside my head, being the last one.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was the first one to answer the question, I kind of answered more mechanically.
Okay, so that's something, you know, build that self-awareness that you do well on your feet. And you might get in your head, as you said, if you're kind of waiting and sitting. So if you're given the opportunity, you should know that about yourself. Go first, right? Okay. Autumn, what insights did you have about this?
Making sure I wasn't rambling was definitely something that I wanted to make sure that I did. I know the first time I gave a long response, but I was just trying to constantly keep that SAR in my mind and saying, okay, it's been enough time. Have you moved on to the next one yet? It can be challenging, but just staying on top of that model.
Honestly, I liked it. I thought it was easy for me to kind of talk about my experiences. Maybe it was just like the questions that you asked, but also at the same time, I think one thing I liked was this worksheet was actually good.
Use worksheets like this. You can create them for yourselves for other classes, but use them for your homework as well. Create a little cheat sheet for yourself. Alice, what feedback did you have?
Going off of that, I think it was a lot easier to just talk about personal experiences. It wasn't really hard to come up with or remember something that you had to deal with or find a solution to. But it was fun and I enjoyed it, so it was a good practice.
The trick for me is think of a scenario first and don't worry about the details. Because once you start on that scenario, if you are training your mind to think this way, okay, talk about the situation, my role, what action did I take? They're looking for that part. Then it can flow pretty easily. This is a technique that's used. There's another element to it once you get further in your career. It's related to the tasks, and the actions are really follow-ups or deliverables, so it gets a little more complicated, but people use this throughout their career to be effective. So I thank you guys, and we'll take our next round of panelists. So Jacob and Mallory, and can we have Marina and Courtney? Thank you. And you can make notes on that, Jacob, as we go through.
Okay.
So I'm just going to keep the love going. Any preferences? Ability to adapt, client-facing, communication, or motivation?
Maybe client.
Client. You want to do client-facing? Any other? We'll do one from client-facing, one from ability to adapt. Okay. So who wants to start? We could start from one end and go down. Courtney, do we want to start since Jacob's just kind of come in? He didn't have the benefit of seeing the whole exercise. Would that be right? So what we'll do is we'll go through, everybody will be asked the same question. You're going to answer it in that format that we have the situation, action, result that we talked about. And when we get to the end, Jacob, you'll finish with the same question, and I'll start with a new question that you'll start, and we'll go back. Okay. And remember, the important thing is just get practice doing this and be able to see yourself on video and be able to give yourself feedback. All right, let's go. We will start with client-facing. Describe a time when you had to interact with a difficult client, and the client could be any person you consider a client. Parent, you're dealing with, a professor, some on-the-job experience. What was the situation? How did you manage it? You want to take a few minutes to make some notes, or are you good? Okay.
2 years ago, I was hired by the CEO of a company, and then it was a really great opportunity from what it looked like from the R1 meeting, but after I got to meet some of the other employees and the people that I would actually be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, it became clear that there wasn't very good communication within the company, and that the people that actually would be working with me had no idea that I was even hired, and it took a while to get all of the information, but I was persistent in finding the right contact and then adapting to what they wanted, as well as sticking to the guidelines of the CEO. So after that, we had a good relationship, and it lasted 2 years, and we were really happy together.
Great. Mallory, same question.
Okay, so at my job this summer, I worked at a donut shop, and one time we had an order disconnect, miscommunication between the cashier and my position. Their customer had ordered, and they had specified one thing, and it was put in the wrong way, and so at my job, I had to top the donuts and then give them to the customer, and they were saying it was wrong, and this and that, and I was like, okay, what's wrong, like, fix it, so I just went through my process of elimination and fixed the problem, and then they were happy, so.
Perfect. Marina, same question. A time when you had to deal with a difficult customer, what did you do?
This past semester I worked at the bookstore here on campus, and it was a late night, everyone was still working and wanted to go home and get their homework done. And this man came in and did not have the most like positive attitude and was very unhappy with the service we were giving him. And I personally had to deal with the situation because I was working downstairs at the cash register. And what I attempted to do was just to have a more positive outlook on the situation than he was, and just talk to him respectfully, even though he wasn't talking to me very respectfully. And then it got to a point where I did call my manager, because you have to realize at some point you can only handle so much, and then you have to kind of work with the other people around you. But it was a learning experience not to let somebody else's emotions impact me in the workplace.
Good, great answer. Jacob, same question. Tell me about a time that you had to deal with a difficult customer, and the customer could be anyone you've interacted with. What did you do to manage the situation?
So a couple years ago, I worked as a volunteer at Food for the Poor, and it was just, there was one customer that just like, sometimes, like a lot of times they're grateful for what the company gives them, but there was one customer that just like kind of kept on expecting more, and then but in the end got around and just talked about and gave like maybe a little more but of the materials that they wanted, but came to an agreement and they were fine after that.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we'll take a breather and we'll go into ability to adapt. So I'm going to start with you, Jacob. Tell me about the first job you've ever had. What did you learn? What did you do to learn the ropes? What did you do to learn what was expected of you? I'll give you a minute if you want to make a few notes. Best thing to do is get in your mind, what's that scenario? Think about that job, and then talk about the situation, the action you took to learn what was expected of you. And I'm ready whenever you are. Ready, Jacob?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
So that was actually my first job with Food for the Poor.
Mhm.
And so one of the managers there was taking it upon himself to help me teach me like a lot of the stuff, the things there to do with the accounting aspects and all that. And it just took a while for me to learn, but he taught me like all the Excel spreadsheets necessary to use them and all that. Yeah.
Marina, same question. First job, and what did you do to learn the ropes? What did you do to learn what was expected of
So
you?
my first job is kind of interesting. I worked at the American Girl store, which sells dolls and like accessories, but I specifically worked at the doll hair salon, so I had to learn countless numbers of hairstyles to do on the dolls. So it required a lot of practice and a lot of me asking questions of people who had worked there before. And I was lucky enough to have great supervisors and great colleagues who helped me to really learn it and perfect my hair styling abilities. So it was a good learning experience, and you have to like realize that it's important to ask questions when you don't know.
Great, great. Mallory, same question. What was your first job, and how did you learn the ropes of that, what was expected of you?
So my first job was at Dunkin' Donuts, and I really learned the ropes by training, asking a lot of questions from my coworkers and my boss who had previous experience in that. Just like on-hand training was really important.
Great. And Courtney, same question. First job, and what did you do to learn the ropes?
My first job was actually a hobby/passion that became a job, and so I started my own blog, which became profitable in the first year of blogging. And this job required a lot of training because you, as a blogger, employed, there are lots of areas that you have to enter into in the legal areas and the accounting stuff, and so I asked lots of questions of fellow bloggers as well as professionals in other fields such as accountants and lawyers, and I just did the best that I could, but was always striving to be better, and
Okay, great. When you get to the end, stop, right? Put that period at the end of the sentence. It's hard to give yourself that cue to wrap things up. So if you see, I'm giving you some verbal cues like great job, use that as a kind of wrap up. People will give you those cues. So great job, all of you. You used the technique well. I think Marina, you had the best posture and body language. So look at the video if you decide that that's something you want to look at. Look at Marina's upright posture. She was leaning forward, a lot of activity and energy in her face. So you want to bring that out. That helps someone connect with you and says, okay, this person's really going to be a fireball and be a good asset to my team. Let's talk about what was easy and what was difficult. Jacob, what did you find either easy or difficult about this challenge?
What was easy was just talking about personal experience, just talking about that. And then hard was, I guess, getting the words out.
Okay. So it wasn't so much the technique for you, it was just how do I order this so it makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Marina, same question.
For me, it was a little bit difficult to shorten my response. I feel like I could go on and on about exactly what happened in that situation, but you have to include situation, action, and result. So it's not just focusing on what happened, but after that.
The technique does force you to be more concise, and sometimes those techniques give you parameters to be successful. So if you look at it that way, it's not constraining you. Mallory, how about you?
I thought it was easy to figure out the situation for the answer, and it was difficult to kind of get the words out like Jacob said, but also figure out when to elaborate and when not.
And that's just going to be a judgment call. If you're in a situation where they want that specific skill, you might spend a little bit more time. If you go on too long, they'll cut you off because it'll be at the disadvantage to the other panelists who are interviewing for the same position. Miss Courtney, and what about you?
I feel like mine's probably different because I have a hard time remembering situations. I guess just because, especially negative situations, because I just try to
forget it
and forget and if it went wrong and it got better, then just remember that it got better. And
it was like my 30s. I would just remember this blur, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you need to, before you go into behavioral interviews, if you know you're going to a situation, give yourself 3 or 4 different scenarios that are your go-to scenarios, and you can play with them a little bit and use them for each question that you're given. Normally a situation like this, this could go on for about an hour. So you wouldn't just be asked 2 or 3 questions, you would practice. And if you didn't know the technique and other people did, it would certainly show within that first half an hour that maybe you wouldn't be asked back for the next session for the rest of the day. So it's good to use these techniques to keep yourself in the running, keep yourself in the competition for those nice positions. So I applaud you as well. Thank you. And we'll take 4 of our next group here, so whoever wants to jump up, and then we'll have a second round with anybody else who wants to get some more practice. You're fine. All right. So we'll focus on communication and motivation and values. Austin, you going to join us up here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I don't have that paper.
That worksheet?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah. Sorry.
Is that your nice way of asking for?
Can I please have?
Love these manners. Thank you so much.
I appreciate
So
it.
this is just a worksheet for you to use. You can make notes with it. You can use it for your homework. You can also use it, and they can put it out on Moodle. You can use it before you go into interviews to help yourself get prepped. Okay, so Austin, you're going to join us, right? Awesome. And then after this group, Joshua, sorry, JJ, I can get it. I'll have you join, and then anybody else who wants to do a second round can get some more practice. So let's look at communication and motivation and values. All right, let's start. start with, question 30 on motivation and values. And Austin, do you mind if we start with you? So we'll go down this way. Tell me about a time you were dissatisfied with your work. What could you have done to make it better? And if you want to take a moment to make some notes, since you're the first one up, feel free. And just look up when you're ready. Tell me about a time you were dissatisfied in your work. What could you have done better? Okay, so start with your situation. Thank you.
So I had a group project for one of my classes earlier this semester, and we kind of didn't have very good communication. No one was really texting in the group chat we made to communicate about the project. So I knew that our ideas and our actual product that we're making for the class wouldn't have really been very cohesive because no one was communicating about transitions or kind of connecting the dots together. So a couple days before the project, I told them that I really wanted to meet in person for a couple days in a row to kind of get all the ideas that we had cohesive together and kind of flowing. So we did that, and our final project turned out to be successful because we had met in a group and gotten together.
Okay, great. Michael, same question. Tell me about a time you were dissatisfied in your work. What did you do to make it better?
Similar to that, I was in a group project where I was very busy with a lot of other schoolwork and extracurricular activities for a week, and I couldn't really work on the group project and make the presentation. But I told my group members like how busy I was and said that I would present the whole thing so I could have contribute my part to the project and they didn't have to worry about presenting it. And in the end, it turned out well. We all got a good grade and good participation scores, and I felt like even though I didn't prepare the presentation, I at least contributed and helped create a more cohesive group.
Okay, good. Thank you. Henry, same question. A time that you maybe felt dissatisfied with in your work, what did you do to make it better, or what could you have done to make it better?
So in high school, I was a very passionate baseball player and overall sports player, and I was a pitcher for my varsity baseball team, and I had a pretty inconsistent season in my senior year, and so to resolve that, I started becoming more engaged with the advice that my coaches were giving me, and started applying myself more and really demonstrating my work ethic amongst my teammates to show that I will continue to support them and be a part of the team as much as possible. And a result out of that was that we went to the playoffs and won a few games, but then we lost eventually. But it just augmented my sense of leadership and my sense of diligence, my work ethic.
Great, thank you. Cam, same question. A time you may have felt dissatisfied in your work, what could you have done to make it better?
One scenario when I failed miserably was when I did not perform well in my calculus exam for one of my classes this past semester. The outcome unfortunately lowered my grade point average pretty significantly. So I wanted to move on to the next step and see what I could do to make it right. I met with the teacher in office hours and reached out on their own turf to make sure that I could learn the material more diplomatically and more educationally. I found that studying in advance would definitely help my my study standard for the future. And on the next semester, I scored 15 points higher by studying 2 weeks in advance every day for about half an hour apiece. And you learn from your mistakes, so be sure to take note of your failures to expand further.
Okay, great. Good questions, good responses. So let's go to communication. We've mentioned that a little bit. So let's take one, we'll take 23. Tell me about a time you had to rely on written communication to get your point across, either to an individual or to a teammate or to team members. Kim, I'll give you a few minutes to make a note, and then we'll start with you. Okay, so Kim, get that scenario in mind.
Sure.
And we'll start. I'll read the question to you again. Tell me about a time you had to rely on written communication to get your ideas across to your team or to an individual.
So for reaching out to jobs and further internships in my business experience, I had to formulate a proper resume. And doing so, I didn't have much experience with crafting one until coming across this course and working with the Student Professional Development Center at Elon University. And this expanded my horizons with building a proper document to convey my written communication of experience, education, and skills. And with this, I was able to expand my network by sending a proper document out to corporations, hedge funds, and small not-for-profit organizations.
Great. Henry, same question. Time you had to use written communications to get your point across to an individual or a team.
I took a American Literature course last year, my freshman year, and it was a level 200 class, and it was very challenging for me, and it was very presentation focused, where you would have to present every week on a certain chapter of the book or whatever we were reading. And I was not very good talking to a group of people and conveying my ideas more effectively as I needed to. But gradually throughout the year, I started communicating and meeting with my professor, and through my written work, I found that my ideas were best conveyed and understood. And through that need where my professor and I developed a mutual relationship and understanding about what my talents are and how I can really apply that.
Great, thank you, Henry. Appreciate that. Michael, same question. Time you had to use your written communication skills to get your point across.
This year, for finding housing for next year, it's a little stressful, and sometimes when the people who lease the houses haven't gotten back to me through email, or just trying to get the applications into them even before they ask, and we try to get ahead of schedule so I can have a lot of options on where I live, and just show that I'm extremely interested in the house. I would write the application, would write them a letter, and send it to them in the mail instead of emailing them if they haven't gotten back to me or texted them. It just seemed to show like a next level of interest beyond other people that were looking at the house, and just showed how committed I am.
Okay. Low tech is sometimes the best way to go. Okay, Austin, same question. Time that you had to use written communication to get your point across.
I think one of the most stressful things that anyone my age has had to do in their life is applying for colleges. So for most colleges, you have to write an essay, and it's super hard to kind of convey your feelings. And in addition to that, the people that are reading these essays are reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications. So it's hard to kind of stand out, and that makes it kind of stressful. So I went to classes, and I just asked individuals for help with my parents. And I ended up writing a really good essay and got to my first choice school. So it's just about asking for help. It worked out.
Is Elon your first choice? Good for you, congratulations. Great. So I applaud you guys as well. Let's give them some feedback. What was easy or difficult about this exercise? Who wants to start? Henry.
Initially thinking of what you were going to say and like how you were going to like flow with that and how you're going to transition and like saying to the point, but also concise.
Cam?
I would say sticking to the situation, action, results. It's kind of a concise format, you know, you kind of want to go off on this tangent and explain the story like with more detail, but you want to stay, you know, to the point.
It definitely, the parameters of the exercise keep you on point, and it helps you avoid that rambling response where all of a sudden you're like, what the heck? How did I get here in this conversation? Michael, what was easy or difficult for you?
I kind of agree with Henry. I think it was a little more difficult to, like, when you get the question out of the to write, like, it's harder to find in your head, like, a perfect situation for that. And then, once you, like, if you figure it out, I thought following the SAR is definitely a little more easier because I know, like, where I'm going in the story.
Right.
Because I definitely want to ramble if I wasn't singing that, so I know, like, what I need to hit.
And once you get to that result of that learning, you're done, right?
Yeah.
Peace out, you know, you can kind of wrap it up. So that can help. Austin, for you, what was easy or difficult?
I think finding like word choices was a little difficult because you don't want to be saying like and trying to add fluff, but you don't want to be saying outrageous words that just make you seem like you're trying too hard to be intellectual, or so
Okay.
just kind of finding that balance.
You don't want to come across as pretentious, is that, or affected, if you
Yeah.
will. So I can certainly see that. You look at your diction, you can see for yourself if you feel like you need to practice that. In terms of having scenarios that you can talk to, a lot of people actually keep a small little notebook with just stories. And it can be, you know, the time I worked at Habitat for Humanity, or the time I worked as a school counselor, or that school project that I want. Write down a number of these different scenarios before you go into your behavioral interviews. And those will be, at least to give you an anchor to start with something. You can always kind of bluff your way through, you know, the action I took. Even if the story's not 100%, you know, actually happened, you still need to give an idea to somebody about how would you behave in a situation like this. That's really what they're looking for. So, nice job, all of you. I appreciate your taking this seriously. Joshua, you're up next, and we need a few more volunteers so he's not sitting up there by himself. Anybody want to go get some more practice? Autumn's going to raise her hand. Penny, no interest in taking another shot? Get some more practice? All right. It's better with a few people, because otherwise it's just a little stilted.
They can't have all the fun.
Yeah, that's right. Jacob, you want to give it another shot?
Sure.
Why not? Why not? Doesn't work against you. Okay, we're going to talk about teamwork in our last round here. Let's start with, Kenny, we'll start with you, and feel free to make a note. We all make mistakes we wish we could take back. Tell me about a time you wish you had handled a situation differently with a colleague. First, try to get a scenario in mind, because that'll help you narrow down the answer. Could be a misunderstanding that you had. It could be anything along those lines. So.
I guess a specific situation doesn't really come to mind, but
Okay.
a lot of recurring problems that I've had is mostly not asking as many questions as I should, and not having a complete mindset of what I need to get done. And then I find myself going back to the person and asking more questions when I should have started from the beginning, asking a lot more.
Okay, that's actually a really good answer. So you said, you know, nothing comes to mind right now, but here's, you know, one thing that I know I need to ask more questions in the beginning. I've learned that through trial and error, and that's more effective and more to get to a good situation, get to a good outcome. So it's perfectly fine to kind of turn that around and say, let me answer it the way I want to, because you're still giving an answer. You didn't completely give up and say, oh, I couldn't answer this one, or I'm stumped. So you want to take that initiative to answer it the way you did. Good job. Okay, Autumn, same question. You want me to give you that question again? We all make mistakes. Tell me about a time you wish you had handled the situation differently with a colleague.
Yes, last year I worked on a group project with an individual. I had done all my aspects of it weeks in advance, and then I went into presentation of the project, saw that she hadn't done any of her part. I got to the presentation and she never showed up, and as a result, I had to give the presentation alone, and afterwards I sent a less than nice text to her expressing my frustration. Eventually I found out that she didn't show up because she had an anxiety attack about her inability to perform and be able to handle the situation well. I felt very guilty, and as I learned that not everybody is just choosing to be incompetent. They may have things that are in their lives that are out of their control, and it's caused me resulted in me being a much more compassionate team leader and just try to be most understanding before expressing any emotions of mine.
Great. Good story. When you get to the